Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we are going to review the Aerosoft CRJ package. The Aerosoft CRJs were the first airlines to be released for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and as such they do have quite a special place. And also they are some very popular regional airliners. For example, we see them flying here in Germany for Lufthansa, and a lot of US airlines are flying them as well. So they are definitely an interesting aircraft type. Now, before we start, let's set our expectations. Looking into the product page on the Aerosoft shop, we see the CRJ bundle, the 550, 700 and the 900, 1000 package. Please ignore the explain CRJ down here, that is not related to today's review. Now, the 550, 700 is the base pack, and the 900, 1000 is available as an expansion to the base pack. So if you want to fly the 900 and 1000, you will also need the 550, 700. They come at a price of $49.99 for the base and $19.99 for the expansion pack. And there is also a bundle available, which is slightly more expensive than if you buy the separate two packages, in that it costs a single cent more. Now let's go ahead onto the product page of the bundle in order to have a look at what is advertised to be included in the Aerosoft CRJ. Up here they give quite a bit of background on the actual aircraft, so we'll go straight down to the features. Modeling, highly detailed modeling based on many photos of the original aircraft, covered with high resolution PBR textures, and possibilities of the new flight simulator engine are mostly utilized. Be aware when reading this that this product page was written in 2021 when the craft was released, so it is accurate to that time, and of course Microsoft Flight Simulator is a simulator that is constantly in development. Going down to the systems, they have an extensive flight management system and Honeywell ProLine avionics, including advisory and coupled vertical navigation, and they have a heads-up guidance system. Now, that is what is advertised for the systems, so there is nothing mentioned on the actual systems depth of the aircraft. Also, some details about the EFB, which we are going to check out in a few moments. Finally, going down, simulator options, 8 manuals including detailed step-by-step documentation, immersive sound creation using WWise, so full FS standards, compatibility with Honeycomb and Thrustmaster TCA controllers, and many new options to tweak the product to your liking and your hardware. So that is what we're expecting for the CRJ. Alright, with that said, let's head right into the cockpit, and I'm going to show you what we are going to do. The CRJ, being a regional airliner, is of course not designed for very long flights, however it can do approximately 3-hour sectors as well. However, its primary field of operation is the regional stuff, so that's what we are about to do. We are currently sitting on the tarmac in Los Angeles and we'll fly over to Santa Barbara. And if we have a look into the flight plan up here, 5.4 is planned. Now that is in pounds, as we're flying a US airline over here. And looking into the weather, the forecast is generally good, with easterly winds and some showers of rain in the vicinity. Alright, so I would say we don't really need any extra fuel for that, so let's go with, they say 5.4 up here, let's make that 5.6. Alright, coming into the flight deck, the first thing we are going to do is to power up the airplane and start the IRS alignment, which takes roughly 10 minutes. And this is a very fast airplane to pre-flight, so that's why I want to get the IRS going very first. And welcome to the captain's seat. Now, we'll start with the EFB and make sure doors are open. I connected the ground power previously already so that we do have power available. Okay, so safety checks. Circuit breakers are in, nose wheel steering switch is off, hydraulic pump switches all off. The landing gear lever is down, flight spoilers up, and slat flap lever is set up, radar is off, transponder off. And then we can start to power our airplane. So, battery on, and then we can go. AC power is connected. Just listen to that sound of the fan slowly running up. Okay, so IRS to nav. The gear and safety pins are on board, airplane documents checked, hydraulic 3A pump is off, and with that we can quickly go to the FMS and start initializing our IRS. So database is current, let's go to pos in it, we are going to copy the GPS position and insert that. Alright, then let's quickly head out for the walk around and start doing that. So, as said, we can expect a highly detailed model, so let's have a look at what it actually looks like. Starting up from the stairs, it is funny to notice that the guardrails up here can actually be retracted, and I'm quickly going to show you what that would look like. So. And in this configuration you can actually dock a jetway to the airplane. So it is fully customizable for the airline's operation. So, starting on the airframe itself, Aerosoft went the decal way, which means that you have a base texture of the airplane and then you have all those little text up here on top, which then represent the decals. Now, looking into the nose gear, there is quite a bit of detail there. It is not as detailed as a couple of the newer releases we've seen. But nonetheless, keep in mind we're talking about the first airliner to ever be released for MSFS over here. Note that GSX did bump the GPU into the airplane, but, well, that's unfortunate, but I guess it falls under shit happens. Okay, going over our airplane, note the cargo doors, which are actually accessible from the left-hand side of the airplane, so you are only going to see them down like this. A couple of the details I want to have a look at here are the landing lights, because they actually have some fairly nice 3D modeling of the lights up here. Coming out to the winglet and the wings, again we do see 3D modeled lights in here. And by now they have become standard in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but keep in mind this has been the first ever airliner to be released for it. So, once again, the main landing gear. The tires are not as nicely textured as they are in some other airliners, but seeing that you rarely see the space of the airplane from up that close, I tend to say this is definitely within an acceptable range. Let's have a look into the engines as well. Fan blades, fairly hard to see in these light conditions. And overall, we can sort of see the level of detail we would expect. Now, this is not the most detailed external model that I've ever seen, but then again, it certainly does the job, it does look nice, so that is all we can expect. Also note the tail skid down here. The CRJs, especially the longer versions, do have a tendency to tail strike, so that's why tail skid is installed on any of these aircraft. And a quick look into the cargo area in the back, and I'm shortly going to show you the cargo area in the front as well. Main wheels on the left side are also looking good. No damage anywhere to the wings. Position light is in place. And then we have the main cargo area on the floor of the plane down here. A quick look in here. Not all that much space, but then again we're talking about a 50-passenger regional airliner in case of the CRJ 550 and a 70-passenger airliner in case of the 700. Now, if you wonder what the difference is between the CRJ 550 and the CRJ 700, the exclusive difference is that the 550 has a maximum of 50 passengers and has been developed for United Airlines, who wanted to bust some unions because they had contracts that aircraft flown with more than 50 seats have to be flown by pilots belonging to that company. So what did they do? They went to Bombardier and said, hey, I want an aircraft that has 50 seats only, and please rebrand it as we can't use the CRJ 700 for that. And that's how the CRJ 550 has evolved. Alright, going back into the flight deck, let's have a quick look into the EFB and some of its features. You are going to notice that the EFB does not yet have SimBrief integration or chart integration, which is unfortunate, but is due to the limits of a C++ and WASM project. Now, on the product page themselves, Aerosoft do promise that chart integration is going to be added as soon as possible, and indeed, only with Sim Update 11, Microsoft has lifted those limitations for C++ and WASM projects, so that a chart integration is, or actually any communication to the outside, is now possible. So, I did talk to Hans Hartmann, the developer of the CRJ, prior to creating this video, and he told me that they are going to, or he is going to add this with an update, hopefully soon, but as most of you probably know, he is currently working on the Microsoft ATR, and after that he plans to revisit the CRJ with an extensive update. So, looking into what we have, we can start with a checklist where basically all the normal procedures of this airplane are detailed. Then we have the performance page where we have both the load manager and we get our takeoff and landing speeds calculated for us. Looking on the aircraft page, we have possibilities like managing the doors and connecting the ground power or ground air card and managing the cabin lights. Going over to the maintenance page, we have a couple of maintenance features like stowing the ADGs, stowing the passenger oxygen mask, reconnecting the IDGs and cooling the brakes, and also refill the crew oxygen. And finally we have the options, which give us some options like changing temperature units, the weights, the altimeter units, the flight director, the IRS alignment time, which in this case was set to instant. Now, then we also have some possibilities of changing some stuff in the FMS. And then we have a next page where we can change the default colors of the PFD, calibrate the throttles, which is something that I quickly want to talk about, because the CRJ does have some detents on the thrust levers, like for example Airbuses. So we can see up here we have max power, toga, climb, idle, and shut off. And on here, on the EFB, we can actually tell the simulation exactly at what position of our hardware thrust lever we want to reach these certain detents. That is something that I can recommend everybody to do, because it does greatly enhance your experience with the aircraft. For example, if you're using the Thrustmaster Airbus hardware, then it can be set so that your detents up here match detents on the thrust levers. Okay, so that is pretty much the electronic flight deck. Finally, up here we can change the brightness, power it off, and go to the About function. So, for our flight then, let's go ahead, and we have a full complement of passengers, 50 passengers on board, and we are of course going to take quite a bit less fuel than what the maximum would be, so we are going to take 5.6 thousand pounds. So 5.6, and for the zero fuel weight we are planned at 55 and a bit, so we'll only take a little bit of cargo in the aft hold. 55.6 sounds good to me. And do note, you need to press that set payload button at least twice, otherwise the weight imbalance can act up over here. Okay, so that's pretty much our EFB pre-flight completed, so we can now go ahead and program the FMS for our flight. And the FMS, as they said, is a pretty extensive simulation, so let's see what this can actually do. We have set our GPS position already. Let's go to flight plan, and we are going from Los Angeles to Santa Barbara. Our alternate is going to be Los Angeles once again, so this is just a short 100-mile hop, so if we need to, we are just immediately going to return. So, this is going to be SkyWest 4796, a real-life flight operated on this sector. So, departure, runway 7 left, and we have the Chatty 5 departure towards Guam. Execute that. And then we can go to flight plan. Now, we don't actually need to enter any routing today, because Guam is already going to be pretty much our approach fix. So we'll come in for the ILS approach runway 07, and we'll take GoLED as a transition. And finally we are going to join the two up. So initially on a vector towards Chatty, and then we just take GoLed right behind Quan. Alright, performance in it. Let's start from here. Fuel, we have 5,640 on board. Passengers 50. And we have a cargo of 315. Now, if you are not interested in filling all that out, you can simply put the zero fuel weight in here. That makes it easy. And we're going to cruise at 16,000 feet, and in case we need to divert, we're going to do so at 13,000 feet back to Los Angeles. Execute. Next page. Let's quickly fill that stuff in as well. Climb wind 251 at 41. For the cruise, we're looking at the same. And the ISA deviation is +5. Okay, VNAV setup, we can quickly review this, even though VNAV is not as extensive in this airplane as it would be in some other aircraft. However, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. The final thing we can do up here is to go to the performance page, and in here we can enter our flex temperature. However, there is currently a bug in this airplane that the flex temperature is not followed if you do enter it. However, that is known and is going to be corrected by the developers soon. Okay. The final thing, let's enter a fixed page for MSA awareness, Los Angeles, 25-mile ring, and that's it. So with that, the FMS is prepared. Let's do a quick systems check. Starting on the overhead panel, DC service can go on. Fire test. Complete. nav light on. Landing lights off. Hydraulic pumps. We quickly need to check the hydraulic system, so let's bring the hydraulic system page up. We can see right now the entire system is shut down, and the fluid levels are at 60%, which is permissible to fly in the CRJ like this. So let's turn on all the hydraulic pumps. And we can see we got 3000 psi now. All the systems are operating normally. So with the hydraulics checked, we can just set them to auto. And you can see the left and right systems are going down to 0. The center system stays on because the 3A pump is an electric pump. Okay, fuel pumps on. And the APU can already be started. We're going to cut things a little bit short up here, so that the review doesn't get too long. We need to set our landing elevation manually, which is 13 feet in Santa Barbara. So if we bring the status page back up, we can see landing elevation down here. And this works in 20 feet increments, so one turn, we have 20 feet up there. Okay, recirc fans can go on. The packs are going to power automatically as soon as the APU is available. Windshield heat up to low. And the fasten belt signs can go on. Emergency lights armed. For the departure that we are going to fly today, which is going to be the Chatty 5 departure, the initial climb is assigned by ATC, so I would say we make our life simple. We just go all the way to 16,000, which is going to be our cruise level straight away. Heading bug can go to the runway heading. That is going to be 071 initially, and we're going to continue on that until ATC vectors us over. In this case, we are going to vector ourselves. Okay, the speeds we'll do later on when we do the takeoff performance. For now, let's continue going down over here. Altimeter setting. So if we start from the left, over here we can configure the entire multifunction display. So we want to set the nav source to FMS over here. We want to set our altimeters, and the current setting in Los Angeles is 3003. So let's go ahead and set that. And since I chose the option to synchronize the altimeters, the other sides have been synchronized automatically. Okay, we are going to set our acceleration altitude using the MDA, and that is going to be 1000 feet above field elevation, so 1150. And finally, that is pretty much all. We can set our VOR needles up here if needed, however, we don't really need them for the flight, so I'm just going to deselect them once again. Okay, Traffic function is active already. We can see that by looking at these little needles up here. Now, terrain is modeled, weather is currently not, so let's keep it on the terrain display. Going over to the center panel.
Bay, overheat.
Couple system tests, also the light test. Make sure that all the lights are working. Thrust reverser's not armed quite yet, we're gonna do that later. And looking at our nav radios, they're currently in auto tune, so we are just going to leave them there since we don't need any particular nav aids for this departure. Going further down, the standby radio can be put on. Engage the trims, very important in this plane. Also engage the yaw dampers. Make sure the weather radar is still off. Okay, that's pretty much our pre-flight complete. So, once you're proficient with this aircraft, you can really do this in a matter of minutes. Also note, at this moment, it does not have a SimBrief integration yet, however that is on the developer's plans to be added with future updates. Now, personally, I like this view of the ND most, so we're gonna go into the... we are gonna put this little window on up here. Okay. So with that, we are pretty much finished with our pre-flight. Choke button. Okay, so let's look into the performance then. We have some basic settings up here. It's gonna be either a flap 8 or flap 20 takeoff, and for the runway conditions, we have a dry runway today. So we could either set them manually now by going down here to the speed reference selector. So let's say I click on here, and no, I need to get rid of the control column. So I click on here to show the speed I want to change down here. So 182 is the FTO speed, and now I can dial this up to 182, and like that I could set all the speeds manually, or I just go the easy way and click on set all, and now the EFB sets all those speeds manually for us, including the V2 speed plus 10 on the magenta bar. Okay. And that is pretty much the setup of the airplane complete. With that, let's go ahead and check if we missed anything by reading the power-up and cockpit checklists. Park and brake, on, covers and pins removed, oxygen masks checked, and we have 1850 psi. System panels checked and set. Cockpit checklist. Passenger signs on. Pressurization set. Altimeters 3003, reading 130 feet. EFS and CAS checked. FMS checked. IRS, align, nosewheel steering off. Cockpit checklist complete. And with that, our setup is pretty much finished. So let's get GSX to prepare our position for the pushback and departure, so that we can make our way towards Santa Barbara. This is going to be a very short flight, so we really need to stay on top of things. However, the CRJ is a fairly automated aircraft, and therefore you are going to see that even such short flights aren't as much of a challenge in this plane as one might initially expect.
Hello, we're ready for pushback.
Now, if you want to see the detailed procedures, just go in here. And you can do everything right here out of the EFB inside the simulator, which is nice, but personally, I prefer to do things a little bit different, but that comes down to personal taste. Alright, while they are connecting everything, let us go ahead and close the doors. Now this is something that might be a little confusing at first. First thing we're going to do, APU is running, so let's get rid of the ground power unit. Now, in here, on the ground power it is clear, it says connected. Okay, so I click on it to remove it, now it says removed. But if you look at the doors, for example, it says open, but this is not a command to open the doors, but this is the actual status of that door. So if we have a look into the system page, we can see that the front passenger door and the cargo doors are actually open right now. So if this says open on here, you click on it, and then it says closed, which is a little bit clearer now. Same for the other doors up here, the wheel shocks can go. And with that we are pretty much prepared down here. So let's go ahead, turn on the beacon, turn on your transponder, and read the before start push checklist. Mobile devices off, beacon on, hydraulics set, doors closed, park and brake set, fuel pumps on quantity. So we have 2 pumps on, 5,610 on board, 5,430 is minimum. Takeoff data set, transponder on 1, before start push checklist complete, and the park and brake is released. GSX may start pushing.
All engines clear. Start at will.
So, starting the engines of the CRJ is a little bit of a, well, I don't want to say mystery, but if you are wondering about a mystery, why is GSX all of a sudden pulling us forward? That is a mystery. Now, for starting the engines in the CRJ, that is fairly easy, so I'm going to show you right now. Starting right engine, we press the start button up here. The pack is going to be turned off automatically, and now we can see we have N2, all pressure, N1, and at 20% we are going to unlock the throttle down here using that wrap lever, and then we're going to push the throttle forward into the idle detent. So we have 20%, throttle unlocked, forward into the idle detent, and the rest of the startup happens automatically.
Set parking brakes.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Okay, that's a good starter number 2. Let's start engine number 1. The pack switching, the bleeds, everything happens automatically in this airplane as long as you don't touch the switches and put them into manual mode. So things are fairly easy to get the airplane started up. However, that is not an indication of missing system depth in the Aerosoft CRJ. We'll talk about the systems a little bit when we're in flight or maybe after the flight. That is not an indication of missing system depth, but instead it is only an indication that they have implemented all the auto modes, but things are usually available in manual mode as well. I do find that the general perception of the aircraft's capabilities in the flight simulation community are a little bit, well, misaligned, because
Left is clear.
people often say like, oh, this is such a simplified and easy airplane, but the truth is that there is quite a bit of stuff going on in the background as well. Okay. We have 2 good engine starts. Let's go ahead with the after start procedures. And let's do flight control check, please. Pull up. Pull down. Neutral. Pull left. Pull right. Neutral. Rudders. Pull left. Pull right. Neutral. Just quickly check the electrical pages, make sure that everything's working as it should. The buses are connected as they are supposed to. And on the DC page everything is normal as well. Okay, north wheel steering on. We don't need the EFB anymore. And after start checklist. Anti-ice, off, low, on. AC/DC, tracked, fuel cross flow, manual, CAS, checked, nose wheel steering, armed. After start checklist complete. Okay, taxiing the airplane is fairly easy. You're just gonna set your thrust tiny bit forward, and the plane starts rolling. And we are currently located up here and we're going to runway 7 left, so we'll go straight ahead onto Bravo, and then all the way via Bravo, and we can take intersection Quebec over here. The sceneries in use for this video are the default Asobo Los Angeles, and for Santa Barbara we are using Orbax. As you can see, we're back in idle thrust right now, and the airplane rolls perfectly, so very easy airplane to taxi. It is noticeable, however, that the nose gear is quite far ahead of the main landing gear in this airplane. So if we have a look into the outside, we can see that the main gear is located fairly far at the back of the plane, and that means that when you are going through a turn, your cockpit might have to overshoot quite a bit, so that the main gear stays on the taxiways as it should. Okay then, while we're taxiing, let's do a quick review of the takeoff briefing. Left seat takeoff, runway 7 left, flaps 8, noise abatement procedure number 2. Takeoff speeds 124, 124, 135, and flap retraction at 182. Initially we'll climb at 210 and then accelerate 250, radar vectors towards our first fix. And if we have a look into the departure and what we're actually about to do, then we can see we have the Cathy 5 departure, which is continue on the runway heading 071, then initially radar vectors towards Cathy, and from there we'll then follow the airways up here towards Guam, and from there we'll already start our approach into Santa Barbara. Up altitude, assigned by ATC, we are just going to go straight up to our cruise level right now, which is not 100% realistic, but after all this video is about showing the aircraft and not showing you 100% correct ATC procedures in the United States. Okay, if you have no questions about the takeoff briefing, then let's read the taxi checklist. Flaps 8, flight controls checked, trims green and 7.3. Maybe we can trim that a little bit further down. The EFB set 6.5 for us. So trims green and 6.5. Thrust reverses armed. EFS and CAS checked. BTMS, which is the brake temperature and management system, down here. 0. Cabin ready. Taxi checklist complete. And there is no before takeoff checklist in this airplane. We just go straight away. You can see taxiing this plane is really easy. I've kept the engines pretty much in idle thrust for the majority of time. It slowly picks up a little bit of speed once you gave it that initial little bump with the thrust. And then it slowly picks up a bit of speed, makes it very gentle to control during the taxi. Now one thing that is worth mentioning is that this plane does not have an auto throttle, so we'll have to control our airspeed manually during the entire flight. But just like controlling the taxi speed, controlling our airspeed in flight is also fairly easy in this aircraft. But you are going to see that for yourself later on. It is recommendable, however, in my personal opinion, that you do have a joystick that has a good thrust lever access to it, because you will need to set that thrust manually. Okay, so we are approaching a turn, and you are going to see what I meant with that you have to overshoot the center line so much with the cockpit, even though it is a small airplane. But as you can see, we do need to put quite a bit of energy into this. We are clear on the left, clear on the right. At this point, it would obviously be very helpful to have a first officer The good news is there is an FS2 crew add-on available for this, however we aren't using that on today's flight as we want to focus on the airplane itself. So let me just quickly put this plane into position, set the park and brake, and then we are going to do the before takeoff procedure. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this little view of runway 7 left at Los Angeles. So the weather radar can go on, strobe light on, lights on, and we do not have any takeoff configuration warning. Okay, with that we are ready to go. The park and brake can go off. Get that armrest back down. And remember, we are initially just going to go straight ahead on the runway heading. So, stabilized. Then take off first. And take off thrust is set indications. 100 knots. V1 rotate. You're up. Positive rate. The CRJ is a very agile plane to fly, so you are definitely going to enjoy its hand flying characteristics. But of course we also want to have a look into the autopilot, so let's go. Heading select, speed, autopilot, and start accelerating. 210 knots initially. Flaps 1. And flaps up. Land thrust is set. And we already passed through the first cloud layer. Start our left-hand turn towards that first fix. Make it heading 330 initially. And the flaps are up with no lights, so we can start accelerating 250 knots. So reverser off, throttler off, taxi light off, and we can release the cabin crew, as this is a very short flight. Let's do the after takeoff checklist. CAS, checked. Altimeters, 3003, maintain passing 4,200, climbing 16,000. After takeoff checklist complete. So as the chart said, we should intercept this radio via radar vectors up here to Chatty. Now we're going to make our life easy. We'll just go direct to Chatty. Direct to Chatty. And it says not allowed because we do have this discontinuity up here, so that is actually a feature, not a bug. What is a bug though, is that I can hardly click this clear sign unless I move the speed brake lever for a second. And that of course shouldn't happen. So let's go direct to Chatty. Execute. Nav mode is available. Nav. And when you are going into nav, make sure that you have the correct source selected up here. So we want to use FMS navigation, so make sure that that is actually selected. Let's just enter the direct one more time so that we actually go in a straight line, like this. Right, the airplane is also equipped with a heads-up display. Now personally I'm not a very big fan of heads-up displays at all. You have seen that in my 737 videos. So let's just have a quick look at it and get it down by clicking on the combiner glass. And this is what the HUD looks like in the CRJ aircraft. Now, I'm gonna keep this here for a few moments. Crossing 10,000, we can accelerate to our final climb speed of 300 knots. And the landing lights can go off. We are going to keep the seatbelts on since these clouds definitely look somewhat turbulent. It can from time to time get quite dark inside the CRJ cockpit, as we can see right now, but that's because this is a generally rather dark cockpit with the grey color tones, and of course Microsoft Flight Simulator's HDR does the rest to it. Now, with this being just a 25-minute flight, that means we only have like 20 minutes left. So let's get the airplane up to cruise, level it out, and then we are immediately going to start our approach preparations. Now at 3,000 to go, vertical speed plus 3,000, and now we need to actually manage our thrust manually because the airplane does not have an auto throttle. However, as you can see, I'm just reducing our thrust a little bit. 2 to go, vertical speed 2,000. And the speed is very well controllable. There's absolutely nothing to complain about the controllability of the speed. Even though you don't have an auto throttle, you don't need to be worried. When you set your thrust carefully, then this airplane flies absolutely like a charm. Let's have another look into the direct function. I want to go direct to Fox India Mike. This time we are going to use the direct page. So Fox India Mike, we select that and execute. 1 to go. Yes, 1,000. Again, take off a little bit of thrust. As you can see, speed is perfectly manageable. I told you earlier that I'm not a very big fan of the heads-up display, so let's get rid of that once again. Altitude capture. Let's watch it leveling off. And then we'll start the approach preparation for Santa Barbara. The airplane's response to changing throttle settings is actually pretty immediate, so you can control the speed very well by just looking at the trend vector over here. And let me just reduce thrust a little bit to show this to you. You can see the speed immediately starts moving, so that means you can control your thrust and your speed almost in real time there. Okay, and there we go. So this might actually look like it might stay a little move for a few moments, so let's try to release our passengers so that they can at least visit the toilet. Now, looking into our routes, we have our top of descent coming up there in 30 miles, and if you go to the MFD and open the VNAV window, then it actually tells us top of descent in 5 minutes or 35 miles as well. Okay, so approach preparation in this plane is fairly easy. We look at the active VNAV descent page. Transition level 180 is in. On the descent info page we could actually see which rate of descent we would need, and in here we could basically enter any waypoint with an altitude, and then the airplane would tell us the vertical speed required to make it there. So that is quite a cool feature. However, in the actual descent itself, VNAV is optional in the CRJ, and if we had it installed, the button would be here. Now, that option is modeled by Digital Aviation, so you could install it if you want to. However, the majority of real-life CRJs does not have VNAV, that's why I did not fit it to this airplane. So, the way we are going to do this when the time has come is that we are actually going to follow that little blue circle that we can see coming up on the VSI, and we will have a little vertical deviation bar show up here as well. The real airplane would also have a vertical speed required field up here that is currently not modeled. However, Hans Hartmann, the developer, told me that it is going to come with the next update. So apart from that, all we need to do is to set up for the approach into Santa Barbara. So if we have a quick look into the weather data, then we can see that right now, Santa Barbara information weather, the wind is calm, 10 statute miles, few clouds 3300, scattered 4400, broke 5500, 13 degrees, altimeter 3002. So let's set that, 3002. And looking into what we need for the ILS itself, basically we tune the frequencies and the minimums. The courses could either be set automatically by the airplane or you can do it manually. I am going to show you the manual method right now. So ILS approach runway 7, minimum is 213. So we have the switch down here and set 213 on the primary flight display. That is the blue number we see on the top there. So right over here, MDA 220. This airplane cannot do single digits, so we have to round it up. 220 is going to be our minimums. Frequency, we can either change active or standby. Let's just go into the active. 110.3 and 110.3. Now, if you do go on the right side and you press that one again, then you can change them around like what you're used to. Go on the left side and you press it again, it brings you into the more detailed page. The same goes, for example, for the transponder or for the TCAS settings. So in here we get our TCAS settings. We can switch between relative and absolute altitudes. If we want to see traffic above, below, if we want to have both, like we have right now, and so on. So we take 110.3, and for the missed approach we need San Marcos VOR 14.9, so let's set that one up as well. For the lazy ones among you, yes, talking to you, Hans, you would also have a radio page up here, and you could simply type the frequencies in, and in here you can also switch them into auto mode. So that is pretty much our setup. Now the last thing that we can do, we have courses 075 on the arrival. So let's quickly set the courses to 075 as well. And to do that, I'll quickly take the airplane into heading mode. We'll heading select, change the nav source towards log 1, and then we'll set this to 075. Now that is a little bit hard to see over here, but what you can do, just take the opposite, which is going to be 255, then put the end of the needle towards 255. Pretty much like this. Okay, back to FMS, back to nav, and that's it. Also, you need to set the landing elevation. Now in our case, in Santa Barbara, the landing elevation is 13 feet, so 20, which we had from the departure in Los Angeles, is already fine. Loop will be tuned, that is copied. And with that, we are pretty much ready for the descent. Top of descent in 7 miles. Let's set our altitude down, and we want to go down all the way 3,000 feet for the start of the ILS, which is set now. So the way the descent works in the CRJ is that when we overfly the top of descent, we're going to get a VNAV deviation bar up here, and we're going to get the blue circle in the vertical speed indicator. And we basically go to vertical speed mode and then just set it to the blue circle. And that is all there is. You're going to see the vertical deviation from your VNAV on the primary flight display. And that is pretty much all there is to it. Quite an easy system, to be honest. If you had the VNAV button fitted, of course you would just press VNAV, the plane would go into VNAV, and descend by VNAV. So, 3 miles to run, 2 miles to run, and we are almost immediately going to enter the cloud, so let's put the seatbelt sign back on. Okay, approaching top of descent, let's go vertical speeds, minus 2,000 is usually a good value. Don't forget to reduce your thrust manually, as you do not have an auto throttle available. And here we have it. So, it is looking for something like 1,700 feet a minute. We can give it that. The CRJ's VNAV is a rather basic system, however, it does take all the constraints and everything into account. But what I mean with it's rather basic is that on the VNAV descent page, you set it at target angle of 3 degrees, and then it's basically calculating a 3-degree path down for you. Those of you who followed the recent debate about the Embraer's VNAV, the CRJ's VNAV is a little bit similar to what the real Embraer would have had, that you basically tell it the angle you want to have, and then it's going to calculate a path for you at that angle. But stuff like speed reduction are not going to be taken into account for that, so we have to give ourselves some room for that manually. Okay, and since we are now in the descent, we are entering some clouds here. What's the current temperature? Okay, it's +7, so we need to turn on some anti-ice. That's up here, the cowl anti-ice. We don't have a descent checklist in this airplane. The next checklist we have is the approach checklist. And there is one point on their landing data that we still have to take care of. And we can do that right from the EFB once again. So, go to performance, and down here we have the landing speed. I'm just going to go for set all. And now it has automatically set up the speed box for our landing. If you want to do that stuff manually, you can do so down here with the selector, just like for the takeoff speeds. Okay, the ice detector tells us we actually do have some icing at the moment. Now, we can actually see that on the wiper as well. There are a couple of ice crystals on here. That is normally a very good indicator that there is some icing going on. So I'm just going to leave the anti-ice on for now, even though right now we're outside the clouds. But to my knowledge, the ice detector in the CRJ simply takes the values of the Microsoft Flight Simulator's own icing system and tells us if that one is icing us up or not. Okay, we can actually see that ice starting to melt right now, but we're about to re-enter the clouds, so we might about get some icing again. Approach level 100, let's start our speed reduction. I'm going to be lazy and use the speed mode for that. So go to speed, turn back the target, and now it tells me descent 250, and now it's going to reduce speed all by itself. This is pretty much a level change mode, just like you are used to from the 737. So, just because you see speed up here, it's no auto throttle, this is basically level change. Okay, it looks like there is no more ice detected, but we're about to re-enter clouds, so I'm going to keep this on for now. VNAV only wants us at 1,000 feet a minute, so let's help it a little bit. Vertical speed, minus 1,000. We are passing 10,000 feet, so the landing lights can go back on. The seatbelts are on already. And that's it. So, as we are now within range of the ILS reception, we have just gotten in blue the localizer needle up here, shown as an inactive mode, so to say, so that we have our ILS indications showing already behind the ANA or FMS indications that we're using at the moment. Re-entering the clouds, might get some icing again. But do note, the icing indications on the wiper are gone, so they are actually, we currently do not have any ice. Be aware that icing in temperatures of 10 degrees or less and visible moisture are possible but not necessary. So just because we are in icing conditions right now, it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to ice up. Okay. A little high on the VNAV. Let's turn that down, give us a couple hundred feet a minute more. And as you can see, the speed is really easy to hold. So you can see I have no problems whatsoever maintaining the target speed that I'm looking for. I am going to fly this approach on autopilot. But before we are going to do so, I am quickly going to disconnect the autopilot to show you a little bit of how this airplane hand flies. So let's take the autopilot off right now. And let's do an orbit left and an orbit right. Just so that we can see what is actually going on in the background. Flight director is off. And you can see maintaining altitude, maintaining bank, maintaining speed is all fairly easy in the CRJ. It is a very handsome plane to fly, and it most certainly is a very enjoyable plane to fly. Let's do a turn into the other side as well. You can see small control inputs give you good rate of bank, but the plane is very well controllable precisely, and as you can see, I can control it very precisely if I want to. Now, of course, this is an agile plane, so if we take strong control inputs, we are going to get strong responses. But overall, very enjoyable to hand fly, very precise to hand fly, and I really like the flight model, I have to say. I really like it. Okay, so let's make that right-hand turn back onto the downwind lag. And actually the FMS has already sequenced into the base lag, so we might as well just take it on there. I'm going to reduce speed to 210 knots right now, which is a good speed for a base lag. And then we'll start configuring the airplane as we approach the final turn. So let's put the flight directors back on, nav mode, speed mode, and autopilot. Vertical speed, we need about 1,000 feet a minute, the system says, so let's give it just that. Okay, temperature is plus 10 now, we can take the NTIs off. Now I'm going to use the automatics to fly us onto the final, but if you were on a radar vector you would switch to the localizer as the nav source right now, so keep in mind the nav source needs to be switched. So right now we're in FMS, but we need to turn this to Yoke if we want to follow the ILS later on. Let's go back to FMS, let's go back into nav, let's follow that VNAV path a bit more closely. We can once again see the indications down here, so this tells us we should go at 1,000 feet a minute right now. This tells us we are almost on profile, so let's go 1,000 feet a minute, if I say so already. And we have the ILS signal in the background there with the blue localizer diamond. Okay, approach checklist. Pressurization set, and we can actually see cabin altitude is almost down at sea level, 2.3 psi. CAS checked, Q altimeters 3002, passing 5,100 set twice, and landing data set, approach checklist complete. Not seeing the coastline coming up, that means we are very short of starting our final turn. 5 miles to go, let's start slowing our speed down a little bit more. Let's take it to 180 knots, which is the ICAO standard speed for the base lag. And then we can go flaps 1. And the flaps are out. We'll take that little bit of drag that helps us to slow the plane down. And ideally we want to intercept the ILS with flaps 8. Otherwise you're gonna have a hard time getting that speed under control again. Slowly approaching the glide slope. Speed is coming back nicely. And I will let the autopilot fly us onto the final. And when we're in the turn, I'm going to change the nav source towards localizer. And we'll intercept the ILS like that. So, starting the turn. Do note that the HSI here is not indicating entirely correctly, so this currently seems to, the needle seems to move along like where the plane wants us to go, but it does actually not show us the correct deviation down here. Okay, localizer is alive. Nav source changed. Approach mode armed. And here we go. Localizer capture, altitude capture. About to intercept the glide slope as well. Flaps 8. And glide slope capture. For that we can start reducing our speed to 160 knots. Okay, cabin is secure. We have received our landing clearance. Don't forget to arm your thrust reversers. As you can see, now with the flaps in 8, the plane does a fairly decent job holding its speed on the final. If you need to slow down a little bit quicker, then just take the flaps to 20. Of course, you could at any point just use the landing gear as well, but that would be the not so elegant version of it. As you can see, flaps 8 works really nice holding the speed on the final with an idle thrust profile. Something to keep in mind already. VREF 128, so we're going to approach at 133 knots. Bit of wind from the right at the moment, which is going to die down. Okay, 6 miles out, gear down, flaps 20, and back to the target speed of 133. And extend the flaps as we go along. So flaps 30 and flaps 45. So final checklist: cabin ready, thrust reverser armed, landing gear down, and flaps 45. Final checklist complete. Okay, autopilot off. Let's do the rest ourselves. As I said, very enjoyable plane to fly. Now, the displays in this aircraft are a little bit small to my liking, so it is quite hard occasionally to read everything that is on here, and I'm sure that you guys have seen this in the video already. But nonetheless, it is possible to fly this quite accurately. One thing to notice is the radio altimeter, which seems to be a little bit miscalibrated. So the radio altimeter is going to tell us 10 when we're almost about to touch down. So that's something to be aware of when you start the flare maneuver. But apart from that, the airplane flares fairly nicely, and it is very easy to make a smooth landing on it. Now that I've said this, chances are I'm of course going to smash it right into that runway. And I have no idea why the frame rates are dropping on the final right now. It never did that on any previous flight to me. But of course, when you're doing a review, these things have to happen.
Minimums.
Continue.
100. 50. 40. 30.
Oh, thrust idle,
20.
small flare, and put it down
10.
gently. Okay, we don't have auto brakes, so speed brake up, thruster is normal, manual braking. Okay, and as far as I can see, there is a taxiway on the right-hand side over there. As you can see, frame rates are good now. I don't know why that happened on the short final. Normally this is a pretty frame rate friendly aircraft, so it might just have been my system that actually caused this. Okay, we're clear on the right-hand side. Once again, even though this is such a small airplane, we still need to overshoot with the flight deck on the taxi. Oh. Weather radar off. Flaps up. Speed brake up. Thrust reverser disarmed. Lights off. Start the APU. And keep the plane in the taxiway. That would definitely happen. Okay, it starts raining a little bit. Now, make sure we get into that gate. The light is off. That catering vehicle is clear on the right there. Okay, parking brake set. The APU is available, so shutting the engines down, pretty easy. But there is a small trap to fall for. You have stop switches up here on the engine panel, but those are not to stop the engines, those are to interrupt the engine start. So in order to shut the airplane down, we just take the levers into the shut-off position, and that's it. This is how you shut it down. Okay, so passengers release, fuel pumps off, hydraulic pumps off, rope beat off, should have been off earlier on, my mistake. And the N2 is below 20%, so the beacon can go off. Let's see if I missed anything. Of course, the north wheel steering switch. Parking checklist. Parking brake on, thrust levers shut off, fuel pumps off, ignition off, anti-ice off, low off, external lights set, hydraulics off, trims centered, flaps 0, radar and transponder standby and standby, and north wheel steering off. Parking checklist complete. So let me show you on this occasion how the jetways actually dock to the CRJ. First thing is open the doors. And then make sure that you show the guardrails is down for a jetway. Now we can operate the jetway. And let's take handling by Sky West. Also get the ground power ready. So let's see what that docking looks like. And here we go. So as you can see, you can actually use a jetway in a CRJ aircraft. Looks a little bit strange, to be honest, to have such a small aircraft attached with a jetway, but it is usable. Okay, and with that we can start the deboarding. We can start preparing for the next sector, as it is not unusual to fly like 5 or 6 flights a day in an aircraft like this. But that is going to be it for this review. Now, of course, there is one topic left, and that is, how do I like it? Would I recommend it? And this is going to be a little bit of a touchy topic, because I know that a lot of you have already made your mind up about this airplane. Now, let me start like this. The developer does not promise great system depth, except for the FMS. Now, the FMS seems to work for the most part, but there certainly are some parts that could use a little bit of attention, like for example the flex takeoff. Apart from that, LNAV is also a little bit of a thing. Now, we didn't see it on this video because the airplane actually behaved pretty nice on LNAV. However, there are known occasions where LNAV can act up, and where the plane can overshoot a turn and then go back in an S shape towards its original route line. That is something that is going to be tackled with the next major update for the CRJ. Also, the EFB does not have charts or SimBrief integration yet, but that is also going to come. Now, apart from those points, what do I think about the CRJ then? Well, we'll start with the models. The models are looking good outside, good inside, nothing spectacular if we're honest, and especially the night lighting could use a little bit of more love, so I'm going to show you that right now. Make it dark up here, then I gotta find the light switches first of all. Okay, we need that flashlight. So, oh, they've been blocked, okay. So this is the intake lights, they do look pretty good. Let's put that flashlight off once again. And this is what the plane looks like with the intake lights active. Now, if we take the floodlights on as well, however, those in my opinion could use a little bit more love. Like, looking at this, yeah, it does look alright. You can certainly fly with it. I'm not at all saying that they would be looking bad or anything the likes. But I am saying that, you know, that by now we have seen better. Of course, remember this is an aircraft from 2021 and was the first one to be released. Also, we have our dome light up here, which isn't quite that bright, so this is a rather dark dome light, but that is accurate to the real airplane. Now, going on from there, the aircraft can be flown by the normal procedures, and pretty much everything that you need that I noticed did work. The aircraft is a joy to hand fly. It is easy to maintain the speed, even though you don't have an auto throttle. Now, if I need to mention one downside, then it is that the autopilot doesn't track the glide slope 100% accurately. As we've seen, we had a tiny deviation above the glide slope there. I'm sure the real airplane would do that a bit better, but it was no major deviation, and I haven't seen the plane like leaving the limits of a stabilized approach yet. So, would I recommend the CRJ? Well, the CRJ comes at a cost of $49.99 for the 550 and 700, and an additional $19.99 for the 900 and 1000. So, if we put that into context of other aircraft available out there and compare it, for example, to the 737, then we are getting an airplane that is not 100% as sophisticated as the 737. Certainly, I won't go into anything abnormal with this CRJ, but for the normal procedures it works pretty fine and it is fun to fly. So you're getting 2 models per package, and overall, would I say the project is worth it? Well, yes, absolutely. Now, as said, don't expect 100% systems trainer, but would I say it is study level? Well, you can study for normal operations with this. So that is roughly my opinion of the systems depth in the CRJ. The visuals do look a little bit dated by now, but nonetheless they are still looking alright in my opinion. But make your own picture by watching videos. And in the end, would I recommend the full package for $69.99, including the 550, 700, 900 and 1000 for that price point? My answer to that is yes. Of course, there are a couple of offerings out there which provide a little bit more value for money, like the Phoenix A320, but overall the CRJ is in a similar region in its offering as the competition, and I do think that it is a fun and enjoyable little aircraft to fly. Now, that shall be it for today's review. I would like to thank you very much for being with me until the end. Hope that you have enjoyed it, and I'm very much looking forward to see you all again on the next one. Until then, like, comment and subscribe, and if there is anything that you want to see me cover, or if there is anything you disagree with on what I've said in this video, then do let me know in the comments of the video below. For now, thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again the next time.